Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 78. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. 48 hours removed from the end of the Pittsburgh Steelers season, the wildcard loss to the Buffalo Bills. Dave, yesterday, Tuesday, we had our podcast to react to the game. Still have more reaction today. It was locker room clean out day for Pittsburgh on Tuesday as they had kind of final interviews with the media, final thoughts as they cleaned out their lockers and getting ready for a long off season. So Dave, how you doing?
Doing good. It didn't take us long to get the find out what's going to happen with Mike Tomlin at this point, at least according to reports that came out yesterday. Yeah, it's kind of the finality of things. And look, I mean, yesterday I even went to getting work done on setting up the Excel information sheets on the Senior Bowl and the Shrine game prospects, and getting preliminary stuff set up for to post and talk about the salary cap situation of the team. So yeah, a bit of a finality about it, and was able to dive a little bit into the all-22 tape from the game against the Bills. We'll talk a little bit about that later on in this show, but the offseason is underway, and it's just how quick you have to transition on this. And they probably said goodbye to a lot of or players had to say goodbye to a lot of teammates that several stated that locker room is going to look a lot different next season, as it does every year. You get a good probably at least a third, probably bottom third of churn of a roster, and that's going to happen once again with the Steelers.
One area where there will not be any churn, at least we do not expect this, is at head coach. There's been the speculation that we talked about that's run rampant over the last several weeks on Mike Tomlin's future. Could he walk away? Could he take a sabbatical, go somewhere else? But according to multiple reports, yesterday there was a team meeting held Tuesday afternoon in which Mike Tomlin said the speculation and rumors of him looking to leave are unfounded, and he plans to coach in 2024. I assume that'll be A-OK with Art Rooney, and so that'll mean Mike Tomlin will coach in 2024. Still no extension, what that looks like. I think it's probably likely to happen at some point this offseason, but point is, full expectation now Mike Tomlin will be coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024.
Yeah, that pretty much, I mean, look, his mind was already made up, I would assume, and that's probably now further explains his reaction at the end of his press conference after the game. And, kind of as we talked in yesterday's show, that was more of probably, he probably treated that as the wrong place, wrong time type of question. That, I can't believe that, even though all the stuff on the outside was going around with all the insiders speculating this and speculating that, he in his heart of hearts probably knew what was going to happen and didn't want to really give it any credence. But here we, it didn't even take, well, I guess it maybe was around 24 hours or so. No, it happened earlier in the afternoon there, but less than 24 hours after the season ends, we find out that really, is it news because nothing changes? I mean, the guy was already under contract. Sure. So, but more confirmation that he's going to be the head coach in 2024, and all signs really at this point, and I think several people have tweeted out that like, who was it, Florio, and even though Florio was in the center of a lot of this speculatory reports, but they expect an extension to happen. So now we sit and wait for that. I would think Art Rooney the second will speak by the end of the month. That usually happens before the Senior Bowl, and probably I would think by Thursday or Friday, Mike Tomlin will meet the media again for his wrap-up press conference. But long story short, Mike Tomlin's going to be the head coach of this team in
Mhm.
2024.
Yeah, if you look at the past 3 years, Mike Tomlin's had his year-end presser between 1 and 3 days after the season ended. Typically, there's an extra day or two, so it's 2 or 3 days after the postseason loss. I think after last year, I think he had it the day after with the regular season concluding Pittsburgh's year, and there was no obviously playoff appearance. So yeah, I mean, with Mike Tomlin coming back, not a big surprise. You weren't sure on the reporting, especially when it comes from people like Adam Schefter and Jay Glazer. It was all, just kind of in hushed tones and more vague phrasing, but you just didn't know for sure what Tomlin's thoughts were. But now it seems like we do. Of course, I'm sure he'll be asked about this again and maybe address things head on himself in his opening statement with the media whenever he speaks here, likely before the weekend. So, Dave, yesterday we talked about kind of the three big questions this franchise has this offseason. A, who's their head coach? We now, essentially have confirmation of that based on the reporting. And now the questions become, who's your quarterback and who will be the OC for this team? Those are the two largest questions now that loom into 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, I wanted to kind of recap what Jay Glazer said back on January the 7th. And I think that was during one of the Fox Sports pregame shows. He says, Mike Tomlin, a couple of weeks ago, people were asking for him to be gone. Are you kidding me, people? He's never had a losing season. So Mike Tomlin, it will be his choice if he goes back to the Steelers or not. It will be his choice. So that was where he kind of left off on that. And I think kind of the stuff from Glazer before that, rolling back to December 12th, man, has it been a month and 5 days already? Jay Glazer suggests that Commanders should call Steelers about Mike Tomlin trade, and really the quote from that was Jay Glazer saying, I'm telling you, if Mike Tomlin was available, teams would be lining up. Even if he's not available yet, teams should be calling, trying to trade for Mike Tomlin. Hey, Washington, he's from Virginia. Perfect. I'm at least giving it a shot. Saying I'm at least giving it a shot if I'm a team calling for him, basically. I'm trying, basically goes, in so many words, when rolling back through these Glazer reports, it was, teams should at least try to call to see if Mike Tomlin would be available via trade. But if he's not, are you kidding me? Mike Tomlin will be back. It's his choice whether or not he will be back. So I just want to roll back through the things that Jay Glazer, because a couple of people had questions about that, I think, on my Twitter timeline. Where did you leave me off at?
Well, I just to kind of bounce off of that, we had the commentary during the losing streak, and there was the biggest kind of talking points about Mike Tomlin's future. Is he going to be done in Pittsburgh? Will he be fired or traded or something like that? And we both made the point that trade speculation with coaches happens seemingly every single year, and it's so much more bark than bite. It almost never happens. You had Sean Payton take the sabbatical, which was not analogous to Tomlin's situation of being on a team currently and just coaching and then trading. I mean, that hasn't happened again since Tony Dungy and John Gruden. And you look at this year, Belichick, not traded. Vrabel, not traded. Tomlin, not traded. So this is going to happen, not necessarily to Tomlin potentially, but other coaches each year. Or, Mike Florio loves talking about trade coaching speculation, and this stuff just almost never happens. Logistically, it's hard to do. It takes time. You're delayed then in finding your next head coach because half of them have interviewed and taken jobs elsewhere. So just want to make that point about, trading coaches almost never happens. And this is a good reminder this entire cycle league wide that if there was a year where coaches were going to get traded, you had some of the top names out there, Carroll and Belichick and Vrabel and Tomlin, and none of them are getting dealt.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when Robert Kraft was asked about something along the lines of, did he consider trading Belichick? And he in so many words had said, a lot along the lines of Brady. They had done enough during their careers to decide their own future instead of having it kind of decided, for them. And I think kind of looking at the Steelers situation, obviously Mike Tomlin's not going to coach to the end of time, but at least we don't think so. But long story short, I would think whenever the end of Mike Tomlin is in Pittsburgh, it would be either Mike Tomlin leaving on his own accord. Mike Tomlin, the other option obviously is to be fired. In other words, I don't think they would trade him. I think they would let him go his own path, much in the same route that Belichick with and the Patriots separated.
Sure. And then the Titans owner didn't say that Vrabel kind of earned the right to leave or whatever the case is, like Belichick, but they just said it's too difficult to trade the coach, and logistically it's hard. It's going to take time. And we just didn't want to wait around for all these other top coaches to get interviews and get hired by the time we traded our coach. So even if you don't look at it from the kind of just moral, quote unquote, standpoint of let the guy just leave and do his own thing, there are some logistical reasons why trades are very difficult to pull off and have a negative consequence to your franchise.
Yeah, I think and not to say that there won't be head coaches traded down, in the future and all like that, but I think it's kind of important that we file this offseason or, what has happened recently away in our memory banks for the next time that we get into Mike Tomlin might be traded.
Right. Or any coach. It happens. It's rare. And it's usually the case of somebody who's retired or sabbatical. A Bruce Arians, a Sean Payton is much more likely to happen than a Gruden or a Tony Dungy type situation. And then also with Glazer, just to kind of give my thought process there, when Glazer had that initial Fox pregame hit on January 7th, I didn't come out and lose my mind about it and write a big article on it. I included it in kind of our little daily Depot After Dark article just to tuck it away. And then 24 hours later, Adam Schefter had a more concrete phrasing of there's people around the league who believe that Tomlin may leave and may consider his future. And that's when I said, okay, the last 24 hours, two insiders, one of which is very close to Tomlin and Glazer, have at least implied or hinted at this. That became notable. So I waited until there was kind of two top insiders at least referencing this or hinting at this before even mentioning it as a story. And then, of course, it's grown over time with more speculation, Mike Florio's comments, etc.
All right, good point. And we went into yesterday's podcast talking about a few of the big things that we're looking for right out of the chute. One of those questions facing this team now has been answered. That's obviously the head coach, and really the other. Look, this team has a lot of questions that they need to answer between now and obviously the start of next season here. But the next one, now that the domino of the head coach is known, would be what is this team going to do with the coaching staff, more specifically the offensive coordinator and the all important quarterback position. So that's and I don't know how many when Mike Tomlin talks to the media, hopefully in these next 24 48 hours, are we going to get word here pretty quick about current coaches and their future and firings and whatnot? When we got a little piece of info about assistant, coach, you can tell the people about that. But and I will be interested to see how if I would hope Mike Tomlin's at least asked the question about what his thoughts are on the quarterback position, at least initially in 2024. I don't know what kind of answer, if any, that we're going to get out of it, but I'm interested to see how much he hangs on to, if he throws his support behind Kenny Pickett and football justice, or if he takes the opportunity to kind of, it's going to be one or two things that I think is going to be the takeaway from that. If he's asked about the quarterback position, is either he's in on Kenny Pickett, or he's distancing himself from a decision on making Kenny Pickett the quarterback, right? It can only go one or two ways.
Sure. You're either committing to him or you're leaving it open-ended, and that's going to be very telling. And frankly, it's going to be a half-hour plus press conference, but now that we know that Tomlin is definitely going to come back, it's the only answer that I really care about. He'll be asked about, the coaching staff. The rest of it will be just kind of more open-ended. We'll see, we'll go through it, and that's all well and good. We'll talk about it, we'll write about it. But the only question that I'm really interested in, because I don't know what the answer is going to be, is Kenny Pickett your future or not? And Either you commit to it and say Pickett's our guy, or you're going to say we'll evaluate and we'll see, and we like Kenny Pickett, we'll support him, but he'll give some sort of cop out or more wishy-washy type answer. And I'm very curious to know which way it's going to go, because I really don't. That's the only one I don't know how Tomlin's going to answer.
Right, and does he have to be careful here, or can he do typical just leave it open, because people are going to run with it.
Either way,
us included. Either way, right? So I guess what I'm asking is, if Kenny Pickett is their guy, should it be kind of clear by at least Mike Tomlin coming out of this presser? Should it be clear, or is it okay for him to leave it open in? Because if he leaves any question about it, people are going to use that as a question all off season.
If I'm Mike Tomlin, and if I believe Kenny Pickett is the guy, and if I organizationally between myself and Omar Khan come to that agreement that, okay, Pickett's going to be the guy for next year, for better or for worse, I think you have to say that in the presser, just with the way that Pickett's probably feeling right now, being benched and sitting these games, not starting the playoff game, etc. If you want to give him some confidence and show we still support you, and then you come out in the press conference and you don't really commit to that, that's going to be telling for Pickett. He's going to be aware of what Mike Tomlin has to say. So if you are committing to Pickett, I'm not saying that they are, although I think it is leaning that way, but if that's how you feel, you should make that publicly known.
I agree. And
that'll tamp down on that discussion. The discussion about quarterbacks will still exist this offseason, but it will tamp that down if you come out and say Pickett is our guy.
Right. Now, you can agree or disagree with that and say, well, they should do this, they should do that. But if you get out of the coach's head mouth, if you out of the mouth of the head coach that this is our guy, then everything else off of it's just discussion of what you think the team should do and whether or not you think it's a right and wrong decision from there. I don't want to give this, because obviously we're not in the locker room and we don't know the dynamics, and we don't know players' schedules and what they had planned and all like that. But there was a report yesterday, I think Ray Fittipaldo saying that, for locker room cleanout day, I don't know if he said Kenny Pickett wasn't there, but just didn't
speak. Yeah.
Right. He didn't speak. And with him being a team captain in 2023. And once again, look, the guy, for all we know, was, not feeling well, had a prior commitment, yada, yada. So, I don't want to, nobody until we find specific should be throwing, daggers in that direction. But I will say it's a bit curious.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I'm more curious about just the direction this team's going to go in, what their commitment's going to be. How do you think Tomlin, because he will be asked about that tomorrow, undeniably, or whenever he has his presser. I shouldn't say tomorrow, but that kind of logically is when the presser is most likely to occur. But when he's asked about the future of the quarterback position, do you think he does more of the general vague dance around it, or do you think he commits to Kenny Pickett right then, right there?
Yeah, that's a great question. All I can do is add up what has happened over the last several weeks, and I know people are going to be tired of hearing it, but I cannot let out of my mind the several times that Mike Tomlin's referenced Kenny Pickett and used the word football justice. That's one. It would be an about face if all of a sudden football justice being attached to Kenny Pickett goes away.
Right? That was before he was benched.
Sure. Now, he did the other part of this that has me thinking that he will not in other words, say that Kenny Pickett's our guy, is that he went out of the way to leave Kenny Pickett as number one on the depth chart.
True. Good point.
Now, he there's politics of how much politics is included in that. I don't know, but that's the other part of it, that he had the chance of shifting the depth chart around when, remember just last week or 2 weeks ago, there's depth chart gate, and there was that mistake with the depth chart. during the rookie season, and they called it a clerical error and this, that, and the other. So where I'm at right now with the way Mike Tomlin has used specifically the phrase football justice this past season when talking about Kenny Pickett, and combined with the fact that, and look, it's just a depth chart. I get it, people, but it is one that has been scrutinized in the past and gotten corrected. And Mike Tomlin made sure to say that when Mason Rudolph had the ball, it was Mason Rudolph has the ball because he has the hot hand. It's not because of Mason Rudolph is QB1 on the depth chart. You see what I'm saying there?
I do.
So when you add those, at least in my head, when you add those things together, that's where I'm at right now, which leads me to think that my initial expectation is he will say Kenny Pickett is our quarterback moving forward.
Here's where I think he's going to go, just from listening to Tomlin over the years. He's going to say two phrases, essentially, will be the key takeaways. Something to the effect of, we've got a lot of belief in Kenny Pickett. He may not explicitly say that Pickett is going to be our 2024 starter, undeniable quarterback one, but he'll say something like, we have a lot of confidence in Kenny Pickett. We believe in Kenny Pickett. We want to see more of Kenny Pickett. But it'll also say something to the effect of, we continually evaluate the quarterback position as we do all positions, something a little more coach speak like. So there's going to be, I think, there's going to be two main phrases from this. Something positive about Kenny Pickett, showing belief and confidence in him, but also a little bit of the, we're evaluating as we evaluate everything angle to it as well.
All right. So in other words, you think he's going to leave enough in there that's going to have us wonder, is Kenny Pickett really the guy or is he not?
I think
as to how this team will treat quarterback position during the offseason.
Yeah, I think you're going to get one or two headlines from the media, depending on their angle of Kenny Pickett. One half will be Tomlin's comments about believing in Pickett. The other half will be headlines about the Steelers evaluating their quarterback position going forward. Again, I think odds are Kenny Pickett will be the Week 1 2024 starter. Right or wrong, I think it's the direction they're going to go. But just knowing Tomlin, he gives a little bit of coach speak, but will also kind of give you a half answer sometimes too. I just think that's how he's going to answer the question.
Okay. If he answers it kind of in the way that you just described, how do you take that if you're Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a little bit of the kind of, what is it? The Rorschach test, where you kind of see what you want to see based on, your own life and how you feel about it.
You get way too deep for my 10th grade education.
I don't know. Again, I think Pickett's is the odds-on favorite to be the Week 1 starter. I'm betting that's going to be not explicitly communicated to Pickett behind closed doors, but that'll be maybe the feeling. That'll be the way that they frame things of, you're still our guy. I'm just telling you how I think Tomlin's going to answer this thing tomorrow, just based on how I know Mike Tomlin usually answers these types of questions.
Sure. And anything short of Mike Tomlin slamming his fist down on the table and saying Kenny Pickett is our franchise quarterback moving forward is going to be shipped off into 17 different directions.
Right. Anything that's not a complete commitment is going to be, the door is open for potential replacement, and 1,800 articles and podcasts about Justin Fields and Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins and draft.
You're still going to get those even if Mike Tomlin says, but at least, from anyway. So that's the main thing I think that everybody's probably looking for coming out of the Mike Tomlin presser. I mean, hopefully he'll get asked about who might need surgery, who doesn't need surgery, and health of the team. And I don't know. Sometimes, I don't know. In the past, he's talked about a couple of players might need work or whatnot.
Yeah, but not specifically though. He'll just say maybe there might be some surgeries and just kind of general language.
Right, but overall, the health of this team's not bad coming out of a season. I think T.J. Watt talked and said his knee just needs more rest moving forward, and it'd be interesting to see with a guy like Sayambalo, who was dinged up
Harris might get a cleanup. He's at that knee he's had for 6 weeks. Yeah, you're going to get some stuff like that, I'm sure.
Right. All right. What else? And then obviously offense, the coaching staff and all like that's something that we're going to be watching moving forward.
Sure. He'll be asked about that. Again, I expect just kind of the general answer. which is fine. We'll evaluate, and I don't think he's going to commit to anything. I mean, he'll be asked about what he's looking for in the OC, and what do you think he'll say to that about the OC? Will it be just we want winning football and scoring points, or do you think there'll be actually some substance to that answer?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to outline what he's looking for or anything like that. Heck, it'd be interesting to see between now and then if any actual moves are made, because in the past, haven't we seen the Randy Fichtner news and almost immediately after the season? Was that before or after the Tomlin press conference that year? Do you remember?
After.
Okay.
Almost no coaching moves get made before Tomlin speaks, but that's usually on like parting ways with coaches. And obviously there's really no, permanent OC to part ways from right now. So they're just going to start their OC search for a permanent guy probably within a week or so.
All right. So we'll probably be left twisted with him saying we're evaluating into season discussions. And then probably 4 or 5, 6 days later, we'll find out who's gone and who's staying.
Right. Speaking of one guy that appears to be gone, we know Mike Tomlin is staying, but one assistant coach who appears to be leaving is offensive assistant Glenn Thomas. Reportedly, he's going to be going to Nebraska to team up with Matt Rule, where they have a long relationship. They work together at Temple and Baylor. Thomas was hired for the 2023 season, so just 1 year with Pittsburgh. Offensive assistant, didn't hear from him. Don't entirely know his role. It was probably just more game planning, film study, helping, wherever he was needed throughout the week. He's got NFL and college experience, but Glenn Thomas appears to be going back to college.
I can see a lot of people with the meme, who? Didn't even know you. Did he even talk to the media? I don't think he did he?
I don't believe so. Eddie Faulkner talked about him once and said he was doing a great job, but as an assistant coach, those guys have no media obligations.
All right.
So that is one name who appears to be on the out. Do you think... We have some time here to talk about this, but what other coaching staff changes do you think could happen in terms of the parting of the ways type things? Do you think I think it's more likely to be offensive turnover than defensive turnover, but what are you thinking, Dave?
I know a lot of people want Terrell Austin gone, but I have a feeling that's not going to happen. I think Grady Brown stays. I think Aaron Curry stays. Dunbar is up there in age. So isn't he?
I mean, he's older, but he's not like 70 or something. He's 50s, 60s.
How old is
56, according to Wikipedia.
All right. So, as far as defensive coach, I mean, Denzel Martin, I don't think he's going anywhere. Who else on the defensive side of football?
I do wonder if Grady Brown will get some DC interviews once head coaches get hired. This will be later in the offseason process in maybe 2 or so weeks because they got to fill, obviously, GMs and head coach spots first. But I could see him getting some DC interviews around the league.
Yeah, but will he get a job?
Yeah, who knows? But I think he can at least get some looks.
But long story short, I'm not expecting much shakeup, if any, on the defensive side of football. If there was a move to be made, it probably would be the defensive coordinator position. But other than that, other than a guy maybe like Dunbar moving on or something, I'm not expecting anything on the offensive side of football. Now, if you move over to the offensive side, I mean, obviously, you have to question what's going to happen with Eddie Faulkner, with Mike Sullivan, with Pat Meyer.
Who do you think are real candidates? Because, I mean, do you think Sullivan could really leave, or do you think could they be upset if they get passed over for the permanent OC job? Would somebody look elsewhere? Because, I mean, Faulkner, I think, has done a good job with the running backs, and I don't know if they're going to have. I mean, maybe if a new OC gets hired, maybe he brings in his quarterback coach or something.
Right. I mean, I think you leave it up to you want this guy to shop for his coaching, some of his coaching groceries, or at least people that. So I think it's all dependent, potentially on maybe the new OC.
Okay, that's fair. Pat Meyer, I mean, putting the OC hire aside, I think, assuming just for a second, if the OC does not want to replace Pat Meyer, if it's a Tomlin decision, I think he would stay if given the choice.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. There is a recency bias here with, they did do, but the offensive line gelled, but why aren't these offensive lines gelling at the start of the season?
That's fair. No, I agree with that. But I just think they've had so much turnover with the O-line coach in recent years that they want to continue that process for a relatively young group or guys new to Pittsburgh. I think they've done enough with the run game, especially. I thought Pat Meyer had some really creative schemes, later in the season that really improved the run game. So that's my guess. Not going to lock it in, but that's my guess.
There will be changes, right? There better.
I think so. Yeah, I would. Again, OC hire can change things. For some Jackson, the receivers coach, is one name that I look at. I wonder if that's going to be a potential move there.
I wonder about that as well too.
Because I think they generally sign, positional coaches sign 2-year contracts in Pittsburgh. And so this is year 2 for Jackson. If we assume that's true, then his contract would be up. And again, Pittsburgh, less likely to fire coaches, but more let them just walk and their contracts expire. So that could be the situation Jackson finds himself in.
And what about Alfredo Roberts? I know you're a big Alfredo fan, but has this team gotten enough out of their tight ends
as a whole? I think so. I mean, look at Freiermuth's development, Heyward's development. I thought Darnell got better as the year went on. I mean, Rodney Williams. I mean, who has he not developed and made better throughout his tenure?
Okay.
I think he's pretty safe.
All right.
But again, if a new OC comes in, I mean, you never know what could happen there in terms of the shakeup, especially if it's an external hire, which has not happened in Pittsburgh since Todd Haley. All right, Dave, other players speaking on that locker room clean-out day, Cam Heyward, T.J. Watt. Much of the conversation was offering support for Mike Tomlin, defending him, saying there's no one else that they want to play for. Heyward actually went as far to say that the rumors and speculation about Tomlin created a distraction. And did he say dissent among the team too? That was kind of a curious comment.
Yeah, and why he would let I don't like the fact that he look. I understand these guys read this stuff, and how can they not? But don't tell me that it's bothering you. You know what I'm saying? We know it, but we know
okay with him saying that.
We know it bothers you, but I mean, because here's the thing: if it bothers you now, what other things are bothering you?
It's just being honest. I mean, I can appreciate the honesty and the candor. My question is, what dissent was it creating? Were people getting mad? Were they thinking Tomlin was bailing? I mean, I'm just curious where the dissent angle was coming from Heyward in his commentary.
Yeah, it's hard to say for sure without him being specifically asked how that impacted and all.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a poor choice of words, maybe not dissent, but maybe, just questioning where the future of the team is going. And, are they playing for a guy that might not be there?
Right. That's true.
That kind of thing there. Yeah. Did he use the word dissent?
I'm pretty sure he did. It was kind of tucked away. Distraction, I think he was more firm on, but I'm pretty sure, I don't know, I can't find the quote right now, that he spoke for 10 plus minutes, but I'm almost positive he used that word at some point in the conversation.
And look, I mean, it's, if anybody knows how tough it is to choose the right word, sometimes it's me. So sometimes you might be looking for one word and say another word and, not really mean the full definition of it. Mm-hmm. So,
but he did say distraction. I mean, he was basically saying there was an impact on the locker room from these reports.
Right. I get that point of it. And I imagine there was talk in there, people reading their phones and saying, man, well, what do you think about, this? And there being constant talk during the week about that.
And I think his point, to just tack onto that, is, Heyward always wants the singular focus on the week, the game, beat the Bills, beat the Ravens, get in the playoffs, and these other things were some of that noise that you don't want seeping into your locker room as you're trying to lock in over that final month to make your run.
All right. I thought it was, he talked about his health and a little bit more about his future. The further you get away from the end of the game the other night, it's feeling more and more like, barring something spectacular happening, that Cam Heyward will be back in 2024. That's your takeaway as well too, right?
Absolutely. And he even seemed to imply that he may play past 2024, something to the effect of, I'm not even saying it's going to be just one more season kind of a deal. So, but it did depend on health. And he talked about how difficult this year was and opened up even more about his injury and that groin injury he suffered in week 1. It did not begin in week 1 of the regular season. He said he actually hurt his groin on the first day of training camp, had some mini tears. They tried to rest it and thought he would be okay. And then obviously he wasn't, going down and tearing his groin fully in that week 1 game against San Francisco. So interesting note there from Cam Heyward.
Look, we could tell upon his return that he couldn't run right, so I imagine it was something for him on a week-to-week basis to try to get through. Probably very frustrating on his part because we didn't see a usual Cam Heyward out there all of the season. Really?
Yeah, for sure. It's. I went back to my training camp notes. He practiced the day or two after that first day at camp. Now he did have that kind of prolonged rest period, kind of the more middle portion of training camp. I remember that. So, and Heyward alluded to that's why it wasn't just typical old man rest. It was him trying to, just take a couple of days off to let his body heal. But if he actually did hurt his groin on that if it's the literal first day of camp, not padded, but like the first day, non-padded practice, he practiced for the next couple of days after that. And I'm sitting there reading my notes going, why are you practicing, Cam? No one has, they're not even in pads right now. You don't have to practice, but I'm not sure if he meant actually the first day in camp in terms of like the actual first practice or the first day in pads.
Okay. Gotcha.
But either way, that's interesting to note there that because that was McFarland too. McFarland said he hurt his knee in the preseason, but he played through it and then he got hurt in week 1. And then his knee injury was too much at that point. And he had to go on IR. So often these injuries begin before they actually, visibly appear to you and I.
Right. And he talked about having to cram a whole, kind of off season into, what did he say, 6-8 weeks or what, however long to try to recover. And basically he did what he could do to get himself back on the field as quickly as possible, and obviously wasn't 100%. And there are several times with him that you can see on the tape with him running that's not the way he runs, and obviously his production probably wasn't where he wanted it to be. He wasn't the same Cam, and that's probably because having to compensate for the groin hurting. He can have my groin. All right. I don't use mine anymore. So, but yeah, here's the hope that he gets a lot of rest this offseason, and can hit the ground running in 2024. As far as looking past that, look, he's only under contract right now for the 2024 season, something that's going to be, and he in so many words was asked about his contract and what he thinks is going to happen there. He did the proper thing and says, look, this is a business and all that stuff will take care of itself upstairs. Here's the long and short of it when it comes to his contract, Alex. He is scheduled to earn $16 million base salary in 2024. Now, a lot of people will run and look at his cap number, which is $22,406,000 and some change. All right. Don't look at it that way. The way you got to look at it is what he's scheduled to earn as a base salary, and then kind of work from there. I will tell you this. When it comes to massaging his contract in whatever way you want to massage it to free up salary cap space, it's an important reminder that Larry Ogunjobi is set to earn a total of $9.75 million in 2024 with his base salary and with the roster bonus that he's due this offseason. All right. So you're not going to ask Cam Heyward to take his salary down less than $10 million when it comes to that defensive lineman room. You're just not. All right. You would agree with that, right? You're not going to take your defensive captain and then make him earn less in a single season than a guy like Larry Ogunjobi. Are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
All right. So at most, you would lower it down $6 million down to $10 million. I think that's the high side extreme when it comes to going to Cam Heyward and asking for a pay cut, which I'm not convinced happens. It could, but I'm not convinced it happens. Additionally, T.J. Watt's obviously the highest paid defensive player period on this team. Minkah Fitzpatrick outside of Cam Heyward would be the third, and Minkah's scheduled to earn $14.5 million base salary in 2024. You have a guy like Alex Highsmith, $10.733 million. So there's another hierarchy, if you will, that you could basically, I think, in your head say, no way does Cam Heyward earn less when it comes to a base salary in 2024 than Alex Highsmith. So now you've capped it at $11 million, which would take a $5 million pay cut at that point. And that is if indeed you were willing to shuffle him behind Minkah Fitzpatrick when it comes to base earnings in 2024. So when you're talking about pay cuts, and specifically about a guy like Cam Heyward, to me, the discussion ends at it potentially being $5 million. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I am, and I think a pay cut with you is less likely. It could happen, but $5 million would be and that was Ben. They took Ben down $5 million. That was his pay cut, correct? So that's kind of a model, but I think they were in worse cap situation before, and wasn't Ben counting way more against the salary cap? And they had, Rooney came out and said we have to do something with Ben's contract, and they have not framed it that way with Heyward yet. Right,
there were different dynamics involved and all like that for sure. Now, what you could the most likely to me, and I spent a lot of time playing with the numbers last night with this. I think the most likely path with Cam Heyward is leave his salary alone. But what you do is do what this team did with Troy Polamalu and Heath Miller several years ago. They added 2-year. They basically signed those guys to 2-year extensions. No additional new money was added, and what they did, it basically became a restructure situation with 2-year options added on top of it. They gave them base salaries, the 2 additional years that were competitive based on their position group and all like that. They took a chunk of their base salary that they were each scheduled to earn in that current year, turned it into a signing bonus to prorate out for the remainder of over a course of 3 years in total, right, to lower the cap numbers on both those guys there. To me, that's probably the likeliest scenario when it comes to massaging Cam Heyward's cap number. So what you would do is, let's say you wanted to take his $16 million base salary. Let's lower it down to $2 million. The $14 million would be turned into a signing bonus, and then drop down, prorated over. You add 2 other years onto his contract. That at least throws the carrot out there that, comes out 2024 and has a good season, and you want another season out of him. At least it's not on the books as a voidable year. You could go the voidable year aspect with it, where you add on 4 voidable years, do the same thing, take his base salary down, turn it into a signing bonus that way. But the problem in doing something like that's going to void much in the way that Ben Roethlisberger deal happened, was all that additional proration accelerates in February, 5 days after the Super Bowl, whatever, in 2025. Whereas if you added on, let's say 2 years, and then did a proration that way, and if it didn't work out after 2024, you could then designate him as a June 1st cut, and then put off half of the remaining proration until 2026, yada, yada. So I think if you want to talk about Cam Heyward specifically, I would be surprised if it's a pay cut. If it is a pay cut straight out with no new years added and all like that, I would expect it to be no more than $5 million. But I think the most likely path here with him would be to add 2 years onto his deal, and then no additional new money. Just give him a chunk of what he's scheduled to earn in 2024 as a signing bonus, and lower his cap that way.
Good points and great math, and I think that's the most likely scenario as well. And also, if you did the true extension as opposed to the voidable year extension, and Heyward and the team wanted him to keep playing beyond 2024, then he just plays his contract out.
Right.
You just go into the next year. You don't have to deal with voidable years and trying to rework the contract and all that kind of stuff. So help me understand how this would get announced and framed. So they would say it as a 2-year extension.
It'd be a 2-year extension
worth What's a base salary going rate? 11 million, 12 million? What would be a number on that? Like how they would announce this.
I mean, look, you wanted him to save some face out of this as well, too, where the average yearly value.
Yeah, you can't say 2-year, $8 million extension for Cam.
Right. So, I mean, his on the books average yearly value right now is $16.4 million. And when you look at him in the hierarchy, I think he's still right there around. He's still I think he's like 13th or 14th overall. I'm not going to count him down here, but let's say you did to keep him within the top. I mean, you got to lower him that much, and you got
to lower it some. You can't give him a $16 million base salary for 2025 or something.
I mean, you could because of the cap escalation and all like that. Then worry about it then. Let's just say let's put it at 14 million in each of 2025 and 2026. Let's put it at 15 million. And let's call it a 2-year, $30 million extension.
Okay. That's how it would be announced if they were to do something with that.
Right. People would lose their ever-loving mind if it was announced like that. But that's the way you do it to save face with the player and his average yearly value. Here's the thing. It would be framed as that, but it would also need to be framed that there's no new money involved.
Sure. The devil's in the details, but I'm just trying to get an idea of how it's going to get framed initially and how it's going to look on the surface. And then, of course, This is being done for, other reasons, but I just want to get an idea of how that's going to actually play out publicly. And then we'll talk about the details when the details come.
Here's what they did with Polamalu back when that happened. It was, what was it? 2-year, $11.75 million extension is what it was termed.
Okay.
And as part of that, $6.75 million of the $8.25 million base salary that Polamalu was scheduled to earn. I don't know why I keep all these numbers. I know why I do, because I have a problem.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm glad you did. We have them now.
What happened was $6.75 million of the $8.25 million that Polamalu was scheduled to earn as a base salary in 2014 was basically turned into a signing bonus. The 2015, 2016 years got added on to that, and he was given base salaries. What had happened? In other words, that $8.25 million went down to $1.5 million base salary, and the remainder of that was turned into a signing bonus. And as additional years added on to that deal, which he obviously didn't see, were a $6 million base salary in 2015 and a $5.75 million base salary in 2016 there. So if you look at kind of the percentages and all like that, it's not unreasonable to think that it might be something like
13.
Like a $16 million base salary for Cam in.
You think? Because Troy's was lower than his base salary was initially, right? It was 8 point something, and then the future base salaries came down by 20% or so. So I'm kind of doing that math.
All right, so go 14 and 12.
Yeah. Or even maybe just 14, but something maybe a bit lower. So I could see that. And yeah, I asked the question about the framing to kind of, how do I want to frame it? I'm trying to think. Just make people aware, not to freak out, as you said, when this extension gets announced, assuming that it does at some point, because people might go, oh my goodness, how are they extending Cam Heyward for all this money? He's so old, he might retire, but they kind of have to do it in a certain way.
Right. And with Heath Miller, that was a 2-year, $8 million extension in 2000. Boy, how times have changed.
Yeah.
Just that quick. Man, that's 10 years ago already. Good God, I've gotten old. And I think they lowered his base salary down to the minimum at the time, which I think was $1.02 million that way there. So this is a long discussion about something that hasn't happened yet and might not happen, but I think that's the best course of action that you take with Cam Heyward. There's a 2-year extension and lowers cap number that way.
Prime the pump. That was the phrase I was looking for. I want people to get aware of how this is going to look. I mean, something's going to happen. I think it's reasonable to say they can't just leave this contract as is. So something's going to occur over the next couple of months.
I mean, they could work around it, but it if you have the opportunity to work around it with his approval by just basically adding on 2 years and paying the money he's already due as a signing bonus, why not take that route?
Yeah. And the reason why his base salary is so high, did they do previous restructures, or is this just from the end of his previous long-term deal?
No. This is the reason his cap number is so high is because of restructure.
The old can kicking you're facing right now.
Right. But the $16 million base salary has been was part of the extension. That's what it was scheduled to be.
Okay. Gotcha. So I think the way you laid it out, Dave, is the most likely outcome of how this thing's going to go.
Right. And I'll get all into this when I post the cap update here, soon and all like that of some of the options that this team has. But realistically, and once again, if it is a pay cut, don't expect it. I mean, you could just make this a clean, Cam, you need to take $5 million pay cut to stay. You want to do it? Yes. All right. And then you free up $5 million in cap space that way. Or you could take the other route and probably free up a little bit more, probably around, I don't know, $8-9 million in cap space by doing, a 2-year extension with no new money.
And I think the latter is far more likely. Right. One other way this team will create some cap space this summer, or this offseason, I should say, is to offensive tackle Chukwuma Okorafor, who spoke with the media. And while he said his future's unknown, we basically know where this thing is going. He's got a roster bonus due in March. This team's going to decline that. And Okorafor saying that, had he known he'd be benched and the season would play out in which it played out, he would have never re-signed with the team back in, March 2022 on that 3-year extension. So they're going to clear up a bunch of cap space through Okorafor.
Spicy yesterday, wasn't
it? Yeah, you don't hear from Okorafor too often, but that was a good hot take.
Yeah, that probably didn't catch enough eyes to everybody. But look, this thing ever since that benching happened, even really before then, this thing was heading in this direction. The benching just kind of punctuated it at this point. Chukwuma Okorafor is going to be gone. He's going to be gone by the by the 18th of March. Go ahead and circle that date on your calendar if you're listening at home. He will not make it to March 18th, and that is because he is due a $4 million roster bonus on March 18th. He probably will be gone before that, even because the start of the new league year is a couple of days before that. I think like the 13th or 12th or something along those lines there. So by the middle of March, Chukwuma Okorafor will be gone, and in doing so, the team should save $8.75 million in salary cap space prior to top 51 roster displacement.
And I know he started, 3.5 seasons for the team. That extension, though, was always, at the time, we both were kind of like, all right, kind of a surprising move to give him that long-term deal, that long-term commitment for a pretty average right tackle. I don't know if it was just kind of the situation at the time where the offensive line looked so bleak. They wanted to just try to retain somebody that was the best of a bad offensive line and have some continuity, but that extension always kind of was a bit curious.
Yeah, but here's the thing overall, why and how and the amount of the decision aside, where it gets scrutinized the most, or should get scrutinized the most at this point right now and framed as a bad decision, is the fact that you just paid Chukwuma Okorafor in 2023 a cash amount of $10 million. And that's not even factor into prorated signing bonus from his deal and all like that. But if you want to talk about cold hard cash of what you spent on a player in 2023, you paid him $10 million to play. How many snaps did he play? 400 or something?
Half the season, essentially. That's all he played.
I mean, not even a half when you
yeah, for the first 7 games, I guess, because they had the bye week.
Okay.
In there.
All right. And obviously, had he been injured, you could say, well, he was injured and all like that. But I mean, you paid this guy $10 million to just sit over there and be a spectator.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time Pittsburgh was overhauling their offensive line so much they just didn't want to have to deal with replacing the right tackle spot too. So they just said, okay, we'll lock up Okorafor. He's at least average. There's continuity, and we can focus on investing elsewhere. I think that was kind of the driving reason why this team, they didn't want to spend the capital, the energy, the money on having to replace right tackle too, as they upgraded elsewhere along the O-line.
So he's going to be gone. He knows he's going to be gone. People have said, well, can you trade him? Well, ask yourself this. How many teams do you think are out there, even though tackle is a commodity, one with experience? How many people are going to want to trade for a guy with 1 year left on his contract that's worth $8.75 million is what they would inherit as part of that? And especially if you had is there a team out there that would trade for him and turn around and sign him to an extension? Probably not.
No.
And if you did trade for a 1 year, $8.75 million salary, what are you going to give up for it?
Yeah. And they know Pittsburgh's going to cut him.
Right.
They're not going to pick up the roster bonus. If you're a team, just wait 10 seconds, become a free agent and sign him that way. So they're not going to trade him.
Right. Not basically it would be a shock. I've learned to not talk in absolutes over the years, but I will be highly shocked if they trade Chukwuma Okorafor. And look, you would have to trade him before March 18th.
Who absorbs the roster bonus if they trade him? Does Pittsburgh do that, or does the trading team absorb that?
If it happens before the maturation date of it, the new team,
the trading team,
right? Okay. And that's why he won't be on this roster on March 18th.
Because with signing bonuses, the team that trades eats that, right? That gets accelerated on their cap.
Right.
Okay, but roster bonuses don't, because you're more actively, I guess, choosing to pick that up, exercise that roster bonus.
Right. That's part of that's part of what you're assuming is part of the contract. Now, if they traded him on March 19th, then Pittsburgh, then the Steelers eat that.
Okay, gotcha. Just little cap 101 for my own memory here. One other contract thing, if there's not enough contract news for you guys, one more on Pat Freiermuth saying he wants to be a Pittsburgh Steeler for life. And if there is one extension that could happen this offseason, it is Pat Freiermuth, despite the injuries that led to his worst season from a production standpoint, missing all that time with the hamstring injury, etc. Still could happen. And so what does that look like, Dave? We've talked about it before. The tight end market's heated up. Could Freiermuth bet on himself? Could he get a deal done in the summer? What are you thinking?
Here's the thing. He had an opportunity to make himself a lot of money this season. And injuries and production, he obviously didn't get anywhere close to what he did in his first couple of seasons, right? So, and then there is obviously, because of the type season that he had, and because of getting nicked up and all, there's a lot of questions. You obviously had a lot of these guys sign big deals. Hawkinson signed a deal prior to the season. Cole Kmet signed a deal that averaged $12.5 million. There's probably going to be some attrition, I would think, in the list overall. Here's the thing. People aren't going to like to hear what I'm about to say. He's still probably going to end up in the top 10 highest paid tight ends.
So you don't think the down season has impacted his value really much at all?
No, I think it has, because I think he had the opportunity to probably be more in the top 5, when it comes to, and it's always about what the list is now, not, and the escalation of the cap and inflation, as opposed to really, is he equal to these other guys? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. When you're getting more than the last guy got. That's your agent's job to do.
Right. So if he ends up being a top 10 tight end overall, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're looking at equaling the average yearly value of a Hunter Henry or a Cole Kmet, which is $12.5 million average yearly value. Below that, and it'll be interesting to see who's cut and all that. What didn't Tyler Higbee just injure his knee in that game the other day?
I believe he tore his ACL. Yes.
All right. He's at what is he? About 12 or 13 on this list at 8.5 million. Taysom Hill. No way Taysom Hill sticks at his age, but right now his average yearly value is 10 million.
And he's a weird one as a tight end,
right.
Quarterback, running back.
Right.
Hybrid.
I think, and once again, I don't think people are going to like to hear this. If you get a deal done with him, an extension done with him, I think it's anywhere between 10 and $13 million average yearly value.
I guess the question is, if you're Freiermuth, do you take the deal now where your value is a bit lesser, or do you bet on yourself and have a really strong 2024 and have the season that you had your first 2 years and try to cash in big that way?
Sure. That's why it's got to be enough to make him want to sign.
Right. So I really don't know.
He did come out and say, I want to be, he said all the right political things. I want to be a Steeler for life, blah, 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 blah. Here's the thing. He is scheduled to earn how is his, trying to think, with
your escalators in there bumping up
with the
salary?
Escalator. I don't think he hit the escalator though.
What did he need to do? Was it half the snaps, or was it a production thing, or
it was
the Pro Bowl obviously that bumped that up?
No, I think it was hold on here. Proven performance.
You had said that he missed the escalator, whatever.
Right,
it was.
right. It was
a snap count.
It was a snap count thing. Yeah. So okay. He's not even going to get a level 1 proven performance escalator.
What's going to be his base salary next year? It's his whatever his rookie deal minimum was, right? 2 million
right.
Or so,
1.482 million. So his career earnings, the contract value overall from him from his rookie deal was a little over $6 million overall. So, and he obviously hasn't earned all of that yet, because there's he has earned 4.6 something million, I think, to this point. That's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, for starting NFL tight end. Do you think it may convince him or sway him to, let's get a deal done now and put some money in my pocket? Right.
And I think that's why I think that you're looking at him at a new money value deal somewhere between, once again, 10 and 12.5 million, I think, based on what all has happened with him.
I think Pittsburgh would want to get a deal done, maybe a little bit on the cheaper too, knowing if he has a great year, he's going to get, paid substantially more. The question really just comes down to me, does Freiermuth and does his agent, sit there and play some hardball? And if they don't love the number Pittsburgh's offering, they can just sit there and say, we'll wait, we'll have a great season and bounce back next year. And, we'll have some more leverage and some more opportunity to get paid more for next offseason.
Right. But I think he wants to be there. I think top 10 money would satisfy him based on what he's done so far. I know people are jumping out of their skin right now saying he's not worth 10 million. And I get the pushback on that, but I mean, could it come in lower than that? I mean, it obviously could. I mean, you got guys like CJ Uzama earning 8 million, Will Disley, 8 million. I
can't see it being less than $10 million.
I can't either.
You just wait. If they're offering you 8 or 9, you just wait. Just wait. The good news for Freiermuth, that he had a strong finish to the season. He ended the year on a high note. Had he gotten hurt and missed the last month, that kind of is a sour note to go out on. So at least he looked like he blocked better. He was really intense. His energy was really good. He was obviously trustworthy and sturdy in the passing game. So he ended the year on a really typical Freiermuth note.
I will say that the ceiling that if he did hit an extreme ceiling, which I don't see that happening, but I'm not going to rule it out, it would be 14 million, and people probably driving in be careful out there and don't drive off the road here. But I want to throw out kind of an extreme. Mark Andrews' contract's $14 million average yearly value, and he's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the list. So I would throw that out there as an extreme value for Pat Freiermuth. I would expect this to come in somewhere between 10 to 12.5 million.
Who are the highest? Who is that top 5 of tight ends in football? Is it Kittle, Kelsey, Hawkinson? Who are the top 5?
Well, remember Waller, 17
Darren
million.
Waller.
Yeah, 17 million for Waller, and he's 32. Now look, let's look at his contract real quick here when it comes to Waller. I mean, they wouldn't be crushed, I don't think, if they had to part ways with him, that they could save a little bit of cap money there. It's probably unlikely that it would happen, but I mean, I don't think you could completely rule out the possibility of him being cut, or
Yeah, I mean, it's a bad contract that the Giants assumed for reasons that were not entirely clear. I was just curious who the top 5 were, just because I was thinking about just who those names are.
Waller at 17 million, Hawkinson at 16.5 million, George Kittle at 15 million, Kelsey at 14.31 million, and Dallas Goedert at 14.25. Goddard could come off that list potentially.
Yeah, and he got hurt in that game. I don't know what the extent of that knee injury is. I think maybe he avoided a serious one. Anyway, I'm not saying Freiermuth will get that much. I was just curious of who the top 5 tight ends were, because I had not checked out that list in a little bit.
Right. I'd look for this somewhere between 10 and 12.5 million.
All right, so that is your salary. I hope you guys love the salary cap, because we got a salary cap show today. From a tape standpoint, I have not had the time to go into the all-22 in depth. I've been going through my charting and some articles and things like that. So you probably watched a bit more than I have, Dave. We'll talk about it more Friday, but any new impressions, new thoughts watching the all-22 of the Steelers-Bills game? I
think first and foremost, the way the Steelers treated Josh Allen when it came to defensive side of football, they blitzed Josh Allen a lot in this game, and they paid for it.
Yeah, I was gonna, one of the first things when I'm truly done with my charting is to see how Allen fared against the blitz. I'm going to guess the numbers were pretty strong, and they blitzed him last year, and he handled the blitz well. And Pittsburgh, I mean, they weren't probably as aggressive as last year, and they had some more safe pressures, but yeah, the blitz did not work against Josh Allen. Right.
Between safe pressures and flat out numbers and all like that, they tried to get after him in this game, and it did not work out well at all. A couple of touchdowns, I think, against the 2 passing touchdowns, in fact, against heavy, blitz pressure type situations. The 52-yard, the 52-yard scramble against like a 6-man pressure that they didn't handle that well either, and open up the escape lane. So I think when you talk at least initial observations from the tape, it was from a pressure and a statistical standpoint. They tried to get after him, and it didn't work out. Josh Allen was fantastic in this game. Period.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was all the good of Josh Allen with none of the bad. And when he's on his game and not making any mistakes, good luck beating that guy.
Right, and especially with the conditions not being as adverse and windy. I mean, his ball already was going to be able to cut through the wind pretty good as it was. But I mean, he was able to drill him down the middle of the field quite easily there. And if when he's on his game, the way he was on his game, the way you beat Josh Allen is you outscore him.
Yeah, you need a Mahomes. You need some elite quarterback on the other sideline.
Offensively with the Steelers, they probably the Bills came out knowing that the Steelers were going to try to run the football, and they did every effort to kind of stack the boxes in those situations. The Steelers did not. There was probably a little bit more man situations that the Steelers should have tried to attack down the field, and they didn't. I mean, how many balls do you remember that were actually pushed down the football field?
I mean, I think Tomlin made a comment that they were making Pittsburgh throw vertically more than they wanted to.
Right.
I don't know if I got that impression really watching the game, but I really hadn't gone back through the tape to evaluate that as fully.
And when you fall down 21-0 as it is, it's already going to take you out of some elements of your game, and then it's going to change what the defense does, trying to keep the lid on things a little bit more. And I've spent less time. I wanted to mostly spend time in there looking at the big plays and the touchdowns and all like that. Blown coverage, obviously, on the first touchdown, the miscommunication between, who was it, Roberts and Peterson, right?
Yeah, I couldn't tell what went wrong. I mean, Roberts was in the flat and Peterson was in the flat. Was Roberts supposed to carry that vertically? Like, because he had the breakup later in the game. Was that kind of the fix of that?
Well, just judging by Patrick Peterson's reaction, he was expecting, I think, Roberts to carry.
Yeah, so
remember that touchdown a couple of years ago against the Bills with the corner out going the other way? A similar concept there where Edmonds and Mark Barron were looking at each other.
Yeah, I saw that clip you tweeted out last night.
They basically got caught in the same thing there of who's going to do what in that situation there. So whatever happened, whoever was wrong, it was wrong.
Oh, yeah. No, that was clear. Yeah, in Pittsburgh, I had mentioned this before, even before this Bills game, that Pittsburgh had been blowing a couple of coverages against Seattle and Baltimore. And, when Geno's was a good quarterback, but whenever it's him and Tyler Huntley, those guys may not take advantage of it the way that Josh Allen, just a better quarterback, is going to be able to. My main takeaway without really watching the tape is, just to kind of sum up this game, Pittsburgh did not have a successful run until it was 14-0. They went their first 5 runs unsuccessful. They had a 9-yard run end of the first quarter. So when you don't run the ball once successfully until you're behind 14 points, you've dug yourself a nasty hole that you have to dig out of the rest of the way.
Right, and you can't make mistakes, and you can't go down there and when you have the opportunity to draw within 7 and throw an interception in the end zone there. And then once again, as we talked about the other day, in a matter of 3 minutes and 45 seconds of actual game clock time, you go from throwing that interception to Josh Allen running 52 yards down the field. That was quite a flip in the game when you're already down 14 nothing at the time there. The second touchdown that we kind of talked about, when you look at the all 22 on that, divide concept, right? Where you put really essentially Minkah Fitzpatrick in conflict there.
Yeah, I was trying to see where the miscommunication might have been, because Miles Jack said after the game there was miscommunication, but I can't tell what it was supposed to look like.
Yeah, I don't just on without having more details on it and looking at the route concepts and all. I mean, it
looks right.
Yeah, it looks right. It looks like you got beat with scheme.
Unless Jack thought they were in a different coverage and maybe he got wires crossed about. He thought
maybe a cover
3,
right? Yeah. Cover 3 where you have a middle of the field help,
right? But I mean, it looked like it was executed. I mean, because if it's cover 2, if Jack knew it was cover 2, he'd be carrying that seam defender harder than what he was. He'd be really in that low hip kind of trail position, or even being in a more hip tip relationship. So I think what the issue was, just guessing, because Jack did not expand on it, but I think he thought they were in a different coverage than what Pittsburgh actually ran.
Right, and that could potentially be, but if they were in a true cover 2 type situation, then that's a scheme beater that put Minkah in heavy conflict in that situation, because you had a corner. Who is it? Shakir running that. I think that corner in that conflicted Minkah in that situation there, and then if Miles is going to carry that like a Tampa 2 type situation, even if he's running all out, I don't know if he gets there, because Josh Allen put that ball right where only his guy is going to catch it. Maybe you do interrupt that. I don't know if he's going all out on the carry there. But going back and look at it, I mean, and Josh Allen talked about that play after the game. It was a sudden change situation. Where they wanted to try to go for the dagger there, and they got the look that they wanted. And to me, until I hear more, I call it a scheme beater.
Yeah, I'm with you too, Dave. I think it was just a good call. They wanted the kill shot, was what Allen said, and they certainly accomplish that. The tackling really bad on the Shakir touchdown, even on the Deontay Hardy long catch and run. Oh, just awful tackling on that one. People kind of forget about that play, 34-yard gain with a ton of yak afterwards. Just thought tackling, angles, rallying to the football, defensively just not where it needed to be.
Right. And offensively, there were a few bright spots where it came to the run game. But once again, you get to the second half of that game and you're down it's going to take you out of, look, second and 9 runs in this game is a choice. And they did that a few times. But it would have been interesting to see the complexion of the game, maybe how it would have went if you don't fumble the football early with George Pickens. I mean, these are a lot of ifs that you could rubber stamp to every game, but if you don't turn the football over early like that, and then if you don't turn the football over when you're driving back down to get within 7, how does that change the complexion of it? But it's a lot of, if you don't want to talk about the ifs, don't produce the ifs by turning the football over. But they got in a big hole.
They just can't warm up to a playoff game against a potent offense. If you're playing against some, regular season team with a middling offense, you can take some time to maybe warm up and get away with that. But when you're facing Mahomes and Allen and these high-powered offenses that can put up points, you can't take a quarter to figure things out.
Right.
You're just going to put yourself behind. Again, the stat, I was sitting on it last night. I know I said it on the podcast and tweeted it out, when it was happening live, but 66-0 in the first quarter of their last 5 playoff games. Pittsburgh's been outscored by 66-0. I mean, you just can't warm up in the playoffs in this day and age, dude, and just expect to be down 14-0 against Mahomes or Allen. And yeah, they're great quarterbacks, but guess what? You're going to face great quarterbacks in the playoffs. These guys aren't going anywhere. You're going to have to beat some tough quarterbacks to go to a Super Bowl. That's just how it's going to be. And Pittsburgh is just playing uncompetitive football for the first 20 minutes of every playoff game.
And then once again, even if you are not making those kind of mistakes early in the game, like the Pickens fumble and the Mason Rudolph interception, you're still in for a long day where you're going to have to probably, because once again, Josh Allen was fantastic. There's no two ways about it. With the lack of speed and the weather not being as harsh and things of that nature there, and not having a guy like T.J. Watt in this game, you were going to be behind the 8 ball anyway. You're probably going to have to score a lot of points in this game. So that's another factor of it. And look, I mean, you want to talk about the ifs. What if they don't block that field goal and get the ball in a plus situation in that? I mean, you're talking 24-0 at that point. And how does that change the complexion of the game and all like that? So schematically, I think when we get into this thing, I obviously, and you will as well too, starting tonight, and but by the time Friday rolls around, we'll have dug deeper into the all 22. But I don't think there's going to be earth-shattering things other than maybe offensively they could have done more to push the football down the field.
Yeah, we'll look at it. We'll have some more commentary for Friday. One piece of news coming in here right now: the Browns have fired or parted ways with Alex Van Pelt, who was technically the Browns OC, although Kevin Stefanski called the plays there. Van Pelt, drafted by the Steelers, Pitt native, grew up around here. I imagine his name will be in some sort of commentary for Pittsburgh's OC consideration.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprising. And look, I mean, it speaks volumes of what they were able to do with Old Man Joe,
Yeah, I mean, the reason why they persevered was through a lot of scheme. Now, Flacco played really well, but not even just losing the quarterbacks, but they lost 2 or 3 offensive tackles. They lost Nick Chubb. They had a ton of injuries offensively beyond the quarterback position, and they really could not run the ball as soon as Chubb went down, and their offense still was productive, and they still had a good scheme. So, Van Pelt, I imagine, will be a name who will be floated, at least, if not interviewed, for Pittsburgh.
Why do you think they go? To me, that's a bit surprising because of what Van Pelt, because of all the things that you said.
Yeah, I don't know. They're cleaning house. They fired a couple of other assistants as well. Their running back coach, their tight end coach. And so I don't know what's happening there. I don't follow things enough. It is a bit curious. I don't have a good reason for why they would make that move.
Because the problems that they did have when Flacco took over in those games were Flacco mistakes, in my opinion. Because remember, I said going into that game, even though I picked, I think Cleveland in that game, I against Houston, I said Flacco's had some ugly interceptions, from the time that he took over as the starter there. Now, on the flip side, Flacco has made some great plays, especially play action and scheme related, where guys were wide ass open, that kind of thing there. So it's a bit curious to hear him being out.
Yeah, I don't know if there was just some sort of philosophical difference. They just didn't work well together, Stefanski and Van Pelt. I don't know. But he was, Van Pelt, on my list of, when they first fired Canada, of like guys that have ties to Pittsburgh, list of OC names. So we've mentioned him before. We'll probably be talking about him again at some point soon.
All right, what else you got for us?
I think that's everything on my end, Dave. Anything else you want to talk about? If not, we can get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, let's do that. Let's see here. Kane, 22, with all the hotels that need to be filled. Holes, not hotels. Holes that need to be filled on this team. Why wouldn't trading Tomlin be on the table, since everyone else thinks so highly of him? They should give up their first three picks of the draft to get him. That would give us 6 picks in the first 3 rounds, 2 for the O-line, 2 for the D-line, blah, blah, blah. They seem doomed to be one and out team if they don't get more top players. Kane, I mean, look, we could get into hypotheticals at this point till the cows come home and say, why wouldn't they do that? I mean, I don't know what good that does us at this point. I mean, Tomlin's coming back in 2024, and I mean, we could hypothetical this to death, brother.
I would say you don't trade your head coach to fill holes in your roster. That's not really a productive thing, a thing that teams do. You improve your roster through other trading players, drafting, free agency. You don't go trade head coaches to fill roster spots.
All right, Cameron Andrews writes in, hey, David Knox, now that the season is over, it's draft and free agency time. Where do you rank the need for a cornerback this offseason? Where do you think the team stands with Trice and Rush? Besides the Tennessee game, I don't think I've seen Rush much, he says. I remember Trice had some health issues coming out of college. I think we need to adjust inside linebacker, or maybe he means address, or D-line early in the draft if we wanted to go defense. He says offense, either center or right tackle. I wouldn't want us to use an early pick on wide receiver, or honestly any pick at all, he says. Just my opinion. What do y'all think? First and foremost, Cameron, I think when it comes to Trice and Rush, these are developmental options. When it comes, I don't think you can, and you're right that Rush was active for like 2 or 3 games. And really only saw action in that Tennessee game, if I remember correctly, and that was even some at kind of safety, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was dime stuff at the end of the game. Dropped that pick that who had the game-sealing pick in that one? Casey, Alexander? Quan seal that one. Either way, Rush dropped the pick there, but that was the game that he saw really his only defensive snaps, at least heavy defensive snaps.
And Trice, you've got you got the tools there, but you do have the health question, and he obviously didn't play this past year. So I think you look at Trice and Rush as guys that you hope that you get something out of. But within that, I long story short, Cameron, I will say this. I don't think you're going to see a first-round draft pick spent on a cornerback.
You don't?
No.
Just any particular reason?
I just don't think the way this thing sets up with other needs, I don't think, and where they pick, I personally don't think that's from this far out. And we just started this thing. My initial reaction is it will not be cornerback.
Okay. I mean, it may not be. There's other needs, but I'm not taking it off the table right now.
I think you could see this team address the cornerback position.
Sure.
But I don't think it'll be a first round selection. What's going to happen with Pat Pete, Alex?
I think he's back.
Okay.
Are you less sure?
I mean, we've talked about the pros and cons and the cost nature of it and all like that. I think it could happen. Yeah. But even if it does happen, you do have to wonder about the rest of the depth chart.
Yeah, well, they need a number 2 outside corner. Peterson cannot play outside corner next year. Dude, the speed is just gone. His role has to be nickel, safety, kind of a roamer, something. He may not even be an every down player next year. I don't know, but they need someone opposite of Porter because there's nothing there.
I'll put it to you this way. I think they draft a cornerback. I do not think they draft a cornerback with their first pick. That's where I'm at right now.
Fair enough. On Trice and Rush, they're intriguing players, talented players, but you just don't know a ton about them, especially Trice because he got hurt way back in August before a preseason game. Trice. So you're not banking on them. You're not saying we're good because we have Rush and Trice, but they're intriguing guys that could hopefully one of them makes a push and really emerges in camp next year or later this year.
As far as his other suggestions here, I think they need to address the inside linebacker position in this draft early rather than later. I think they need to address defensive line as well early rather than later. And by early, I'm meaning 4th round or earlier at both these positions.
Okay.
You obviously could use a center, right?
To say the least.
That might be a 1st or 2nd round pick there. At worst, maybe a 3rd round pick there. A tackle, they could use a tackle if they don't get one in free agency, and they will shoehorn in a wide receiver in this draft somewhere, somehow, maybe even 2.
Well, they need a slot receiver. They have gotten so little slot production from a receiving standpoint the last 2 years. I know Robinson had a role in value as a mentor, as a blocker, the insert blocks, the crack blocks. I'm not mad at Robinson. He did what he was brought here to do, but combined between kind of your 2 primary quote unquote slot receivers and Robinson and Calvin Austin, you had 51 catches for 480 yards and 1 touchdown. And then last year, you had Claypool and Gunner and Steven Sims, and they gave you basically nothing. So you had a black hole at that slot receiver spot for I think 2 seasons. They got to have an upgrade there.
All right, let's, instead of looking at, because the list is longer of positions they might draft, what positions are they most likely not to draft? Running back?
In terms of a high pick, you're saying?
I'm talking about
day 2 pick. Because day 3 can just be what the board.
Okay. All right. Let's take first 4 rounds.
Okay. Yeah, running back, no.
Running back, no. Tight end, probably not.
No.
Guard, probably not.
Yeah, not going to be a guard.
Outside linebacker.
Unless the guard can be like a center swing guy, 4th round type thing. Outside linebacker,
no.
Yeah, no. List, I think, is over.
Yeah. And we'll see, obviously, we'll see if we get a better feel for the quarterback, what they're going to do at quarterback here in the next couple of days or weeks or months or what.
I'm not expecting a quarterback, but I'm not ready to say no the way that I am for running back in the positions we just named off.
But I mean, nobody's mock drafts at this point should include in the first 4 rounds a running back, a guard, an outside linebacker, or a tight end.
Right. I don't think a lot of them probably do at this point. And I mean, they won't draft a free safety, but a strong safety is certainly a possibility.
Right. At some point. Right.
Yeah, because there's still some question marks there.
All right, let's move on to another question here. Jeff Berg, did you notice Jaylen Warren possibly being injured in Monday's playoff game? Yeah, he was kind of tugging at his chest or something. I don't know if a rib or something like that. He says at some point in the first half, I believe he came up from a tackle holding his rib area. And from that point on, I noticed him doing the same thing after other tackles. And then he'd run off the field looking to be in pain. May have affected his effectiveness throughout the game. Yeah, look, I don't think it's serious enough where it's going to sideline him for, off season and all like that. But I did notice that it looked like he got a little banged up in that game.
Yeah, I know on it was late in the game, so I know this happened earlier, but that fourth quarter third down tackle, he got up pretty slow on when Klein fell on top of him on that 3rd and 3 catch to the left side. So, yeah, he may have hurt himself, but he spoke with the media. He's obviously got some time to rest up now.
All right, David Chicago writes in, first off, thanks for another great season of the Terrible Podcast. Looking forward to the pre-draft analysis pods in the near future. Here's a hypothetical for you. Imagine that Tomlin was dismissed after the Jacksonville playoff debacle, as many, included myself, wanted. The replacement goes 57-40-2 and 0-3 with 3 bad losses in the playoffs. Would Steeler Nation and the national media be calling for this coach's head and dunking on Tomlin detractors at the same time? That's exactly what the Steelers have done the last 6 seasons. Worse still, 2 of the 3 playoff appearances were made possible because the NFL expanded the playoff field to 7 teams. I just don't see a way out of this cycle, especially if the job is handed to Pickett next summer, as I expect it will be. It will be, he says. Look, you can get into the hypotheticals of, had you let Tomlin go and the replacement went exactly that number and 0-3 in the playoffs, and would it be calling for his head? Look, there's a lot of people listening to this podcast that are not happy that Mike Tomlin's going to be back. I get it. But, the reality of the situation is Mike Tomlin's back. Look, you can here's where it boils down to, in my opinion. We talked about this the other day. I went into the season thinking that this team should make the playoffs, win a playoff game, and then we're potentially talking about, hey, the Super Bowl window's open. Now you made the playoffs. You did not win a playoff game. You got questions about your quarterback position. You got questions about your offensive coaching staff. At least you know who your head coach is going to be. But is the Super Bowl window open right now?
No.
Are you guaranteed to make the playoffs and win a playoff game next season? The answer is no.
No. I just struggle to see where the longer-term vision to get this team to be a Super Bowl contender is, just based on the current. There's talent on this team, but it just goes back to quarterback. And can you compete? Do you have the guys? And if you think Pickett's your guy, why do you feel so strongly he can compete? Like, that's my question. If you're Mike Tomlin, and if they are committed to Pickett, and we don't know that yet, but the reporting has been trending that way. But if they are committed to Pickett for 2024, the question is, what have you seen from him that can suggest to you he can compete with the Joe Burrows and Lamar Jacksons and Josh Allens, et cetera, Mahomes of the world? What are you seeing that tells you he could be at least a top 10 quarterback in this league?
Right. Agreed. Look, if you want to focus on one huge positive to come out of this season, 2023, is the fact that the rookie class.
Yeah, that's been really good, encouraging, and hopefully those guys really take that sophomore leap they talk about. And with Pickett, just briefly, because I know the pushback for Pickett is, well, he's been dealt a bad hand, he's had a crap OC, and this and that, and I get that, and there's validity to that. But the answer to the question of why do you think Kenny Pickett can be a top 10 quarterback can't be, here's what he's not had. It can't be the absence of something or the lack of something. That there has to be actual tangible reasons that you think he can be it beyond just, well, he hasn't had X or Y or Z. So I don't think you can answer the question that way.
Right. That's a great point. I think you need to focus on what has he done what has he shown you that leads you to believe that with a different offensive scheme and coach, he can be something. And we, outside of some late game drives and whatnot, that's all we can hang our hat on right now when it comes to him.
Right. He's had his moments, sure, in those big clutch situations, but because you need to be at least a top 10 quarterback. You don't have to be the top quarterback in football or top 3. I'm good with that. You be top 10 and really compete and push hard with a good roster around you and a bit of good health and good luck. But you got to be around top 10, and he's not there, of course, and he's not even trending or tracking that way. So again, the absence of evidence cannot be the evidence of why Kenny Pickett can be a top 10 quarterback.
Boy, put that one on a bumper sticker and sell it.
Oh yeah.
All right. We've run per usual, hour 45 minutes or so. Got through some questions here. Had pretty good discussion. Anything you'd like to leave the folks with?
Nope.
For Friday, what's going to happen Friday?
Well, it depends what happens to Mike Tomlin, maybe on Thursday if he speaks. And of course, Friday will be a busy show. If Tomlin does speak on Friday, then we'll wait until he speaks to do the podcast. So if things come out later on Friday, that'll be why. But if not, then we'll come back and talk about the all 22 of this game and whatever else may be happening around the NFL, make our picks there for the divisional weekend. So we'll come back on Friday.
All right, sounds good. You can follow me on Twitter /X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button. Enjoyed it today. We will be back on Friday. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.